and all is still go as we monitor our status for it. Good luck and Godspeed.
Have you ever had a premonition, a feeling that something dreadful was about to happen?
No, Mother, I have not been drinking.
Do you happen to have a pair of birds that are just friendly?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I have to go back into the past once more, just once more.
This is Hitchpod, a podcast counting down the 20 best movies of the wonderful 20th century director Alfred Hitchcock. I'm Kat Jones and with me is Dan Liebke, and in this episode we're comparing the third best Hitchcock movie, North by Northwest, although I think it's the first best, but you know, the third best according to our countdown. And we're comparing North by Northwest with the movie the Oscars thought was the best one from that year, and it was Ben-Hur.
Yes, but before we get into the North by Northwest Ben-Hur showdown, we'll give a cryptic clue for the second best movie, which will be coming up next month. So the cryptic clue is, and you've got the entire episode to work this out, so take your time, ponder it.
That wasn't the clue, by the way. No. That was your instructions.
Exactly. So here's the clue. He's unusually posh on the outside, but inside there's an awful, heartless cry. 6 letters.
That is a great clue.
So something to think about.
Ponder that one, and I'm sure there's only really 2 movies left to choose from. But anyway, we're talking about...
There's plenty of movies left. There's 40-something possible. It could be anything.
Could be Young and Innocent.
It could be Young and Innocent. I think Young and Innocent we've already had.
Have we?
I can't even remember what was in those early lists.
Well, as a coincidence, Ben-Hur is also 6 letters.
Yes. And it was in 1959, as was North by Northwest. It has an IMDb rating of 8.1 out of 10, a Rotten Tomatoes score of 87%, and Metacritic gives it a 90% score, which corresponds to universal acclaim. Our good friend Bosley Crowther, he had a review of this one.
Let me guess. I think Bosley would have liked this.
He mostly liked it.
Right.
He was very positive, but there is a kind of a pretty good way that he wraps up the review, which I'll read out here. He says, much more could be said in praise of the technical quality of this film, which vastly surpasses the silent version of the same story released back in 1926. Space does not permit it. Otherwise, this review would run too long, which is the one thing this picture does distressingly. 3 hours and 32 minutes of it, not counting intermission, is simply too much of a good thing. The stimulated soul may be willing, but the tormented flesh is weak. So that's a pretty good review.
Poor old Bosley needed to use the bathroom halfway through, but there was an intermission.
There was.
I think that's reasonable, and you would expect a bit of a step up from 1925 to 1959.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Bosley.
Yeah. There are other people with similar complaints. They're kind of in the 1970s. Film critic Dwight MacDonald had the quote that popped out to me most often when I was researching. He said he felt like a motorist trapped at a railroad crossing while a long freight train slowly trundles by.
It was a little bit better than a freight train.
Yeah.
And you had a couple of other funny reviews as well, didn't you? That you found?
Yeah, from Letterboxd, we've got from David Sims, who of course does the Blank Check podcast, a very good podcast, which we highly recommend. He says, hearing more and more things about this the Christ guy. So that's a good review.
I think that could have been a line from the movie because there were a number of times where people did say that.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And Anzil says, I adore about 9 of Ben-Hur's whopping 212 minutes. So pretty good reviews there over on Letterboxd.
It is good reviews.
Well.
Somehow 212 minutes doesn't sound as long as 3 3/4 hours.
Yes. Anyway, the Academy loved it. It won 11 Oscars. Pretty much all of them. Best Picture, Director, Actor, Supporting Actor, blah, blah, blah. Thousands of them. And that was a record for many, many years. It hasn't been beaten. It has only been tied since. And it did lose one Oscar for adapted screenplay to Room at the Top. So need to lift their game on that.
That may be an excellent movie. We just wouldn't know.
Yep.
Yeah, we had this clean sweep. And obviously it's incorrect because they've given all of these Oscars to Ben-Hur instead of North by Northwest.
Yep. Yeah, very, very, very strange. You can rent the movie from your preferred services. It's not available to stream for free anywhere, but you can also track down the Ultimate Collector's Edition Blu-ray, and that contains a whole heap of extras, documentaries. It contains the entire 1925 silent version, so you can follow in Bosley's lead and watch the 1925 one, then watch the new one and see which one's better.
And I suspect it contains contains a whole heap of Charlton Heston saying how good Charlton Heston is.
Pretty much, he does
Yeah.
a commentary. I haven't listened to the commentary, but
Right.
I assume he's full of praise for himself.
I am not going to rush out and listen
It does
to
have
Charlton
a
Heston.
specific documentary called Charlton Heston
Yep.
and Ben-Hur,
Yep.
A Personal Journey,
Yep.
which is an 80-minute look at Charlton's career with input from his wife, son, daughters, and footage from the actors' home videos. So,
Hard pass.
yes. Anyway, as you probably infer from that, it does star Charlton Heston. He plays Judah Ben-Hur, and he, of course, is also famously in The Ten Commandments, Planet of the Apes, and the most recent movie we watched with our patrons over on our Patreon, Touch of Evil.
Huh.
So you can access that one if you want some more Charlton Heston talk.
I don't think I recognised him necessarily. He's got a pretty boring face.
Yes. There was also Stephen Boyd. He played Masala. He was also in Fantastic Voyage, is probably his second most famous movie. Jack Hawkins played Quintus Arius, and we saw him a couple of months ago as well. He was in the Best Picture winner, The Bridge on the River Kwai. So he was the guy who was basically in charge of the mission sending them back over to blow up the bridge. He was also in Lawrence of Arabia, so he's well used to working in Best Picture winners.
And he plays a good sort of fringe comedy character.
Yes, yeah. Hugh Griffith played Sheik Ilderim. We also theoretically saw him in Tom Jones, although I have no memory of Tom Jones. We may well have turned... or tuned out of the movie before we got to Hugh Griffith. And the main female character in the movie is Esther, and she's played by Haya Hararit. And what's the synopsis of Ben-Hur?
A Jewish prince is betrayed and sent into slavery by a Roman friend in inverted commas, in first century Jerusalem. But it's not long before he regains his freedom and comes back for revenge.
Yes. And this is based on a book. There's a book called Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ by Lou Wallace. And it was adapted by screenplay-wise by Carl Thunberg. Although apparently
he's quite famous too, isn't
a
he?
lot of people had their input on the screenplay apparently in this one. And it was directed by William Wyler, who we've also seen before. He also directed The Best Years of Our Lives, which we covered earlier in this countdown.
Yep.
And
Lots of friends in the academy.
yes. And the fun piece of trivia for William Wyler was apparently as a 23-year-old, he was also an assistant director on the 1925 Ben-Hur chariot race. So there you go.
Sounds like a Hitchcock redo
Yes,
on the chariot race.
very much so. And this, of course, is an epic. It's a sword and sandals epic. And it's got a tagline. The tagline is A Tale of the Christ. Or there was a secondary tagline. It's an insane world, but still there's one sanity that remains. The loyalty of old friends. Which I don't think even applies, but anyway.
That is definitely nothing to do with the picture.
No, that's very strange.
That's someone who watched the first 15 minutes.
I think so.
And then they're going, that's it.
That's
it's
it,
too
too
long.
long. Yeah.
But it looks like it's about loyalty of two friends.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
I love that.
All right, so shall we do the recap of this one?
Yes, indeed.
All right, you can kick off on this.
So, this is the plot now. These are the spoilers. You go away and come back in several days if you want to watch Ben-Hur. You may need to do it in a couple of sittings.
Yep.
We watched it in one sitting, didn't
We
we?
did, yeah, we were very
Yeah, we
bold.
had a few breaks, but we did watch it in one evening. We started at, pre 6 p.m, which is not usually when you start watching a movie. But anyway, the plot. So the movie starts with an overture for 6.5 minutes.
Yeah, so you can skip forward on that if you're watching it on DVD or something.
Or else, I think I actually was reflecting on the overture during the long overture. And in the days before cinema ads, they had these overtures, right? And no one had a phone. There's no one flicking through their phone while they're in the cinema. So they just came in and they relaxed through the music.
Yeah.
And that's what you should do. Close your eyes and listen to this beautiful classical music, which is part of the experience back then when classical music was something that you listened to and you got a hit song there at the start for 6 minutes. So I think that was not necessarily the low light of Ben-Hur.
Yes. We go straight out of the overture to The Birth of Jesus, which had very strong Life of Brian vibes, which kind of threw me off a little bit at the beginning because it's basically the start of Life of Brian and the
It's
start of this
identical.
movie is identical, essentially.
Yeah. And there's a narration voiceover that's very Stephen Fry. And the
Yes.
whole thing was just, goodness me, is this a parody? Like, what
Yes.
is this movie?
Yeah, so we do see the birth of Jesus, and then we jump like 30 or so years into the future to Judea, where we see our childhood friends Judah Ben-Hur. This is Charlton Heston. He's a local prince of Judea. And we also see Masala, and this is Stephen Boyd, and he's a Roman tribune, and they reunite for the first time in many years. And they are clearly very much in love with one another.
Yes. Yeah, very homoerotic
Yes.
scene there as they reunited.
Yes.
Anyway, there's trouble in paradise, though, because Masala's new role as the Roman in charge of Judea, he's pretty much an invading conqueror.
Yes.
And he asks Ben-Hur, we're going to call him Ben-Hur, he asks Ben-Hur to help him suppress the resistance, which which we're sure is either the Judean People's Front or the People's Front of Judea or whatever it is.
Two, yeah.
Anyway, Ben-Hur refuses and the bromance dies.
And it dies even more a couple of days later because the new governor, who's Masala's boss, parades into town. I think Masala was just sent ahead. So Masala's boss parades through Jerusalem, and there's a loose roof tile on Ben-Hur's house, and he basically just falls off at the worst possible time, lands near the horse, startles it, and the governor is thrown, and the Romans just all lose their shit because the governor's just been thrown off his horse by this loose tile.
Yeah, so they storm in and Ben-Hur's arrested, along with his mother and sister, and they're all thrown in prison. So somehow, pretty quickly, Ben-Hur makes a daring escape. It's improbable, but past these incompetent prison guards, and somehow busts into Masala's room. Of course he does. He pleads his innocence and demands that his mother and sister be released. Not necessarily himself, so he's a bit of a martyr here.
Yeah.
But Masala's nah, and Ben-Hur becomes part of a prison gang, immediately chained together and heading out into the desert.
Yeah, so they march through the desert. I think someone dies during the desert and he's just unchained and thrown off to be eaten by whatever.
Camels.
Yeah, June spice worms or something. They march in chains through the desert and then they get increasingly thirsty as they march onward and onward under the beating sun. And they eventually stop for a drink, but one of the guards says, no, you can't have a drink, Ben-Hur. We don't like you very much. But luckily there's a passing carpenter and he's glowing and shot from behind, and this carpenter offers Ben-Hur a drink. What a very kind man.
Yes, and Ben-Hur does some incredible overacting looking up into this glowing person's face.
Yep.
Then we cut to 3 years later.
Yes.
Thank goodness for that. So we've had a few time jumps already. We had 30 years into the future, 3 years. Actually, they do these time jumps very well.
Yeah.
Anyway, now we're in the galley of a Roman warship, a really traditional one where there's just thousands of slaves rowing, and that's how they propel these warships. Ben-Hur is one of these slaves who rows to the beat of the drummer. And after some rowing torture, which is really extraordinarily
it was
well
really
done.
Fun,
Ben-Hur, who's called Number 41, he's singled out by the new commander, who's Quintus Arrius, and he's singled out because he's glaring with his beautiful blue eyes. Anyway, he's offered a promotion, but he refuses for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. Instead, they all head off to war. There's a big battle scene between boats, and they're firing arrows and ramming boats into one another.
They're going at ramming speed, which is a very fast beat of the drum.
Yeah. So the poor drummer's arms get worn out as he does that. Anyway, there's eventually a collision. The boat starts to sink. Arrius gets thrown into the water. Ben-Hur leaps in to save Arrius amid flaming arrows and all kinds of carnage, and rescues him. They climb up on a raft and they float along, and they're eventually rescued. And Arrius therefore says, "No, I'm going to adopt you, Judah," and he does. And that's kind of in accordance with Roman law around what happens when you rescue someone from a fiery trireme. You have to adopt them. So that's
fair
what happens.
enough. Yeah, that was an interesting scene. There was a bit of a comedy scene where they get back to town and Arrius thinks he's going to be in disgrace, but he says, "Oh, what happened?" He goes, "Oh, you lost all your ship." Bad news. Do you want the good news or the bad news? Bad news, you lost all your ships. Good news, we won the war.
Yes.
And then somehow that's glory to Arrius.
Yeah, because Arrius was going to kill himself. He kept trying to kill himself, and Hur's like, no.
Anyway, Arrius is back in glory, and they're the only two survivors. And then there's this 3-year time jump again.
Yeah.
And suddenly, Ben-Hur is now somehow a racing car driver.
Yes. Chariot racing.
He's a chariot racer, and he's been adored by all of the fawning women around the campsite. And somehow he's escaped completely being a slave and is now an expert at driving a chariot because that's very handy for the plot. Yeah.
So he said, "All right, thanks a lot for releasing me from slavery and adopting me. That's great. I'm off now back to Judea to see how my imprisoned mum and sister are going."
Yes, and he's now a Roman, by the way.
Yes,
he's been adopted, so he's somehow a Roman.
Yeah.
On the way back, he meets a horse owner, Sheikh Ilderim, and he has 4 white horses who are beautiful, and they're named after stars, Antares and Alderon and Rigel and so on.
Yep.
Anyway, this Sheikh spots Ben-Hur's energy and suggests an interesting character arc for him at this point might be to gain revenge on Masala by beating him in a chariot race, which is conveniently one of his skills now.
Yes. So that is very convenient. And Ben-Hur does arrive back in Jerusalem. He reconnects with Esther, who we forgot to mention earlier. She appeared earlier in the movie as the woman who Ben-Hur was ostensibly in love with, although he seemed to mostly ignore her.
I mean, they only had 10 minutes together, but he was in love with her.
Yeah. Anyway, she's definitely in love with him. She used to be his slave, but she's now been freed. And her father also tried to put in a good word for Ben-Hur when he was arrested, but he was also arrested for his trouble. So there's just unhappy families. So Ben-Hur uses his new status as a Roman to go and confront Masala. He says, all right, you need to release my mother and sister. And kind of Masala's a bit intimidated because he thought, I'm getting the son of this kind of famous Roman dude coming to visit me. And then it was like Ben-Hur. He's like, what the hell? So he says, all right, Ben-Hur's still obviously furious about everything that happened. Will release his mother and sister, and he sends the guards off into the basement of the prison cells to check on them, see if they're still alive. They are still alive, so that's good news. They've been eating the food.
I don't know how they're still alive because they open the door and it's like the door's been wedged shut for
but they've been feeding them throughout.
decades. They've been feeding. They just haven't opened the door. They've been feeding them.
Feeding them through the slot in the door. And the one thing they haven't noticed because they haven't opened the door in years is that they have leprosy, so that's bad news.
Yeah. So they're released into a leper colony. Esther then tells Ben-Hur they're dead.
Not quite. I can't quite remember why she did that. I think they just didn't want to be seen by Ben-Hur.
I think these extra details just add to the time of this movie. So we don't really know why, but anyway, they didn't want to be seen, I think. Anyway, now it's 2.5 hours in, and it's intermission.
Yeah, and it's intermission for this recap as well. We're going to take a break. So after the intermission, the Sheikh shows up with Masala to put a bet on this upcoming chariot race. And he gets pretty good odds. He gets 4-1 on his horses. And then he reveals after he gets the odds that his horses are going to be driven by Ben-Hur in the chariot race.
And it's a massive race. It's a really good race.
It is great. It's very good.
Full of spills and thrills and people getting run over by horses.
Yep.
Masala cheats wildly with kind of spiked wheels, which I feel like are a cartoon trope.
Yes.
Anyway, he uses these wheels to tear his opponent's chariots apart or the horse's legs or whatever. And at the climax of the race, Masala starts winning. He's whipping Ben-Hur, but Ben-Hur grabs the whip and uses it to trigger a crash with the chariot. So then it's Masala who gets run over by horses and left to die.
Yeah, so Ben-Hur wins the race, of course, after defeating Masala. Judea's all adore him, they all love him, they all cheer wildly. And in the aftermath of the race, Ben-Hur goes to confront Masala, who is dying. He was just trampled by about 1,000 horses and chariots. But with his dying breath, Masala says, "Your mother and sister are still alive, but they're in a leper colony." And then he dies. And that's basically the end of Masala.
There are moments in this movie where the pacing slows, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ben-Hur visits a leper colony, bumps into Esther, and Esther has been giving them food and so on. Again, tells him his mother and sister don't want to see him because they look bad, and they squabble about this for a bit, and then then they go home.
Yeah.
On the way home, Esther finds Jesus.
Yes,
and
literally finds him.
And he finds him there on the top of a hill giving the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah. But Ben has no interest in the Sermon on the Mount. He heads home to mope a bit about his family. And
cut to Jesus' point of view at the top of the mountain, and you can see Ben-Hur slinking off in the distant hills, which was my favourite scene.
It was very funny.
Of everyone else is looking up adoringly at Jesus, but yet there's this dude in the distance. Where's he going? That's great.
Yes. So Ben-Hur, after he finishes his moping session back at home, he goes off to confront the governor of Jerusalem. He says that Rome sucks because they gave his mother and sister leprosy. He renounces his Roman identity. He's had enough of it, and he storms off.
And he does a lot of storming off, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does a little bit, yeah.
Esther pops in and gives Ben-Hur the good word about Jesus. She's definitely a disciple at this point. Anyway, she's annoyed that he's so driven by revenge, so she provides the message of the movie and saying he's a bit too much like Masala.
Yes. This wounds Ben-Hur, and off he goes to rescue his mother and sister from the leper colony, pretty much against their will. I don't think they're happy there, but they're resigned to it. But he says, "Nah, you're coming with me." They all pop back into town, which is just just in time to see Jesus on the march to crucifixion. So things have escalated in the life story of Jesus. But good old Ben-Hur kind of brings everything full circle. He gives Jesus a drink of water as he's struggling, and then he hangs around to witness the crucifixion. And Ben-Hur, as well as Esther, sees the light. Especially since it turns out that his mother and sister have been cured of leprosy just by Jesus passing by them. So that's great for them.
Yes, and there's a massive storm, and then somehow everyone lives happily ever after.
Yes.
And what's the moral of the story, Dan?
The moral of the story is always hire certified roof tilers to ensure proper installation.
Yes, we could have avoided all of this pain. So that is the end of, finally, of Ben-Hur. So what did you think?
I didn't know much about this movie going in. So I knew the phrase bigger than Ben-Hur. I knew it was a long, long movie. I knew it was more than 3.5 hours long. And I knew there was a chariot race, and that was about all I knew.
I don't think I ever understood what bigger than Ben-Hur meant. I didn't know that it was a long movie, so I just must have just known it was a phrase without knowing what it meant.
Yeah.
But I think I told you this, I thought Ben-Hur was actually a cowboy movie all this time. Today I learned. Anyway, and I thought it was about a guy called Ben, last name Hur.
Well, I thought it was also Ben space Hur. There is a hyphen in there.
How could it be about first century Jerusalem? Why would they give someone a name like Ben?
Yes.
Anyway.
Very funny. I didn't know that Jesus would play such a big role in the movie. I didn't know it was contemporaneous with him, or that he'd be just popping in and out of the story at crucial moments. And I certainly didn't know that several of the scenes had been so obviously parodied in Life of Brian. Made it very hard for me to take those opening scenes seriously.
I mean, Monty Python must have got all inspiration from this movie. There were a number of movies like this.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ten Commandments as well. But yeah, the Life of Brian really parodies these sword and sandal epics, you know, especially the biblical ones. And it doesn't mock Jesus at all.
No.
So, plenty of people listening to this podcast can be religious, and it just sort of satirizes the movies and the solemn tone of these kind of epics.
But they were kind of quite similar, because Life of Brian, you only see Jesus in glimpses throughout Life of Brian as well.
Yeah.
It's more about another character who occasionally interacts with him. And Ben-Hur was essentially the same, just obviously very different styles, but the same kind of idea. We're going to follow a different character, but Jesus is around, and in both movies take Jesus perfectly seriously, but the rest of the story is just,
And also, it's a point of view we don't often hear in these biblical stories. What's the point of view of the Romans? How did they react, and why did the story end up as it was? But basically, it was so funny that kind of Jesus was like an NPC of this movie.
Yeah. Yes.
Very funny. Also uncredited in the... Someone played him, but uncredited in the credits.
Yeah, because you never see his face.
Yeah.
That's all. He was always shot from behind. And I think there was one time when you could have seen his face, but a convenient shadow was across his face at that time.
So do you think it was too long?
Well, it was long, but for the most part, it moved along at a decent clip. As you said, there were a few bits where it slowed down, but it was mostly pretty solid. It was just rollicking along. It was like watching, binge watching 4 episodes of an hour-long drama. It was it was not too bad, because 4 hours of movie watching sounds like a lot. 10 minutes of it was just watching the music of the overture and the intermission, but still, it was. I wasn't as upset about the pacing as I might have been. For example, when we watched Around the World in 80 Days, the 3 hours of that felt like 5 hours. Yeah. So this wasn't too bad, I thought.
And you're right, it was. We've mentioned this before, that these longer movies are a little bit like these days. They would be a 4-parter, and it wouldn't be a movie at all.
Yeah.
It'd be a very acclaimed miniseries or something.
Yep.
There were some time jumps, and I was really super grateful for them. Imagine if they decided to show us the 3 years of him rowing or learning how to row.
Yes.
The other thing I realised was that I really dislike Charlton Heston as an actor. I mean, both in this and Touch of Evil, if you're going to give us overacting and poor acting, at least be handsome.
Yeah.
No, nothing. I'm getting nothing from that.
I couldn't work out whether the acting, he was very over the top in some of the scenes, and maybe that was the style of the movie, that's what the movie called for, or maybe that's his acting style. I don't know enough about Charlton Heston to know for sure. I did think that the chariot race lived very much up to the hype.
Yes.
So I'd heard about the chariot race. I knew it was very famous, and it was really good considering
great, yeah.
when it was done. And it also reminded me of a later movie. It reminded me very much of the Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace pod race, which obviously ripped it off massively because there's a cheating dude in the pod race as well, and he's tearing other people's pods up to pieces. And yeah, so it's essentially the same thing, which is very funny.
I mean, in every race, in every movie, there's someone tearing up someone's...
Yeah.
And it's probably based back to this one,
Yeah.
Ben-Hur.
Well, I think in Greece, didn't one of the cars in Greece also have one of the hot rods also have
think
something
so.
on their wheels as well? I think they all have to because of this movie.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing I liked about it, and a little bit Hitchcockian in a way, is there were a lot of scenes that had not much dialogue and a lot of visuals.
Yep.
So that was done pretty well in a number of places, particularly I'm thinking of the scene where the drummer in the bows of the ship is getting faster and faster, and there's
that was
not
great.
much except, a lot happens there as they're getting faster and faster, and very Hitchcockian in the way that was depicted.
Yes.
And the other thing I loved about this movie was that every time a scene changes, he had another drink of water from something. He spent so much time drinking water here. I mean, they must have had those ladles individually crafted, and they really wanted to make the most of them because he was constantly ladling water into his mouth or someone else's mouth, like we were in some kind of bizarre drinking game.
Yeah, well, we did suggest that if you had a drinking game where you drank alcohol every time Ben-Hur drank water, you would get hammered well and truly
That's right.
before the end of this 4-hour movie.
So that was very fun.
Yes. So some other facts about this movie. So this was my favourite fact that I discovered. In the mid-1990s, there was a heated discussion via letters to various magazines and newspapers between Gore Vidal, who did some uncredited work on the screenplay apparently, and Charlton Heston. And this discussion revolved around the very obvious homoerotic subtext between Ben-Hur and Masala, which we both called like the instant they came on. It's like these two are in love with one another.
Chemistry. They're fantastic.
Yeah. So apparently, Gore Vidal had claimed he added this subtext, and he talked about it in a documentary that came out in the 1990s, The Celluloid Closet. And this was apparently the first time Charlton Heston had heard about this. And Heston, of course, is this kind of famously massive conservative, and he started a campaign to say, no, Vidal didn't work on this film. He had nothing to do with it. Blah blah blah. He said that subtext doesn't exist. No such thing. It wasn't gay at all. And so Gore Vidal wrote this great letter. And are we going to?
So we're going to read out some bits of this letter, not all of it, because it's a bit long.
But there's some
all right, so I'll read out the first paragraph, or the one we're going to read. I think this is from Gore Vidal. I think we must all be charitable when it comes to Charlton Heston, who's
Charlton spelled incorrectly, by the way. So good work as well.
That's right.
Subtle dig.
Charlton Heston, whose career peaked with the film Ben-Hur, another subtle dig.
Yep.
Kitsch, which has, as kitsch will, become camp.
Yep.
So that's nice too. Happily, he has other strings to his balsa wood bow. the insults coming thick and fast. Spokesperson for the National Review, and, as if that were not glory enough, proud trumpet for the National Rifle Association. Over the years, I've told the funny story of how I wrote a love scene for Ben-Hur and Masala, and how only the actor playing Masala was told what the scene was about, because according to the director, Chuck will fall apart. In numerous accounts of his marvellously dull life, Chuck has told us about his triumph as Ben-Hur. With each version, he adds, alas, new lies. So that is the glorious...
Yeah, so that's the start. He goes on to add. Basically, he says, I wrote this. I told this one actor, the Masala guy, played this as if you're completely in love with Charlton Heston. No, nobody told Charlton Heston this, which makes for this great scene.
And then he goes on to say that no one really wanted Charlton Heston for this movie at all. And he lists about 10 people that were previously considered ahead of him, and they were unavailable, so they glumly accepted Heston, which is
very funny.
Very cruel.
And then later on, he goes on about how he gave this interview to the Celluloid Closet documentary, and then he says, incidentally, one of the producers of the Celluloid Closet told me that they got a powerful message from homophobe Heston to the effect that a character he had also acted on the screen, Michelangelo, was in no way homosexual. But what is one to do with an old actor who, when he works, often wears two toupees, one on top of the other, in the interest of verisimilitude?
That is good.
So very funny. Poor old Charlton Heston didn't realise just how homoerotic that opening scene was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very funny. All right, so how was this movie made?
So it was based on a novel written in 1880. So in the public domain at that point, anyone could have made a movie out of it. So MGM decided to make it. And it was basically coming on the tails of the Ten Commandments, wasn't it? That was 1956.
Yeah, they tried to make a version earlier. Marlon Brando was supposed to be the lead of that earlier version, but the director for that one resigned, so that was stalled. And then after the Ten Commandments, it kind of sprung back into life, and Wyler was brought on as the director.
And, of course, we had all these earlier offers to other actors. Burt Lancaster declined, citing the overtly Christian themes that perhaps he didn't agree with. Paul Newman joked that his legs didn't suit a tunic. But there was a bunch of others, right? Montgomery Clift, Rock Hudson, Leslie Nielsen.
Nielsen. I would have loved to have seen the Leslie Nielsen version. That would have been even harder to take seriously today.
Yeah, exactly. So in the end, they started filming. Long film, 8 months. I guess that's not that long.
It's pretty long, I think.
Yeah, throughout 1958. So, but they were working hard. They were doing like 14-hour, 6-day weeks.
Yes, and it used it is bigger than Ben-Hur. 2,500 horses, 200 camels, about 10,000 extras.
Yeah, there were a lot of extras.
The chariot arena covered 18 acres. So yeah, massive.
And the horses, who were really worked hard in that chariot race, apparently no animals were harmed in the making of this movie.
Impossible. I was watching and thinking, oh God, I don't even want to think about how many horses died in this. Shooting this film, but apparently all good.
And they were taught how to go in a group of 4, which not all horses can do, so they had to be trained and allowed to run around the track, but only 8 times a day because of the heat.
Yep.
Why they were filming this in Rome? Why were they filming this in Rome?
So
I saw that. What? Why?
They had money to spend.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the horses were well looked after, personal caretakers, etc. The race was orchestrated by this famous trainer and stunt artist Yakima Canute, and his son was Joe Canute, did the famous on chariot jolt. So this is a point where Ben-Hur kind of leaps over a crashed chariot in front of him. His horses leap over. His chariot somehow leaps over. You could see Ben-Hur kind of fall over and stumble and lose his balance and somehow regain control of his chariot. And this was a stuntman who did it. He got flipped and somehow landed it, recovered, and that wasn't supposed to be what happened, but they caught it on film. So I was like,
it was really great.
That.
Yeah, it was a fantastic part of this chariot race.
Yes. And then kind of during the post-race celebration, there was a guy who picks up Masala's helmet. This is after Masala's been killed, essentially. And he just picks up the helmet and runs off with it. And apparently this was spontaneously, that he wasn't told to do that. The extras had just been told, do whatever you want. So this guy said, all right, I'm claiming this helmet. So it's very funny.
Yeah, that's great. And we also had a sea battle, which was pretty spectacular as well. It was filmed in miniature inside a massive tank. And there was, a lot of different craftspeople for set freezers and props and so on. So incredible amount of work here and money. And I think it went way over budget, right? The budget doubled.
Yes. Yeah. So it was about, and there's lots of post-production as well. One of the cool things, Wyler convinced MGM to replace the roaring MGM line, which we've all seen a zillion times. He said, no, I want a quieter line so as not to jar the film's religious prologue. So he said, no, the line's not going to roar.
That seems like a bizarre detail. But anyway, $15 million was the eventual budget. Double, very expensive for the day. And it didn't matter because it made, $150 million at the initial box office, which seems incredible for the 1950s.
Yeah, it was second only to Gone with the Wind at the time. It was bigger than Ben-Hur.
And saved MGM that needed a big hit. And then, of course, won all of those Oscars. Yes. And so you said there were a couple of movies that had matched it for Oscars? Yeah,
so Titanic also got 11 Oscars and The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King also got 11 Oscars. So that remains the record. In 1998, the American Film Institute named Ben-Hur the 72nd greatest film, or greatest American film.
Seems low.
Who do you think was 71st?
Around the World in 80 Days?
No. 71st was Forrest Gump. North by Northwest? 40th.
Yes.
So, just saying.
Yeah. With the benefit of hindsight.
Yes.
And the eyes of the taste of the modern public, I guess, or at least the 1998 modern public. Because these things change, don't they? Every time they do another one of these top hundreds, you've got another 25 years on the previous one for people to be thinking about different things.
Yeah.
There were a lot of good lines. It was not completely serious, despite the fact that Charlton Heston played Ben-Hur as straight can be.
Yes, in all
senses of the word straight. There was no humour, no levity, no nothing in his earnest portrayal of Ben-Hur. There were some great lines from people around him, including some very funny ones about the Romans going, "Oh, this Jesus guy seems to be getting a lot of publicity."
Yep.
Like, you know,
and there,
really
there was a
incredible.
good line early on where we checked in with Joseph, and somebody said, where's your? How did
That's
it go?
right. It was fantastic. They said to Joseph, "Why can't you get my, table done on time, my door made on time? You terrible carpenter." And he goes, "Oh well, I'm really under the pump. I got a long waiting list." And the dude says, "Why doesn't your son help you out? Where is your son?"
Yep.
And Joseph just goes, "Oh, he's out roaming the hills, saying that he's doing work for his father." Like, it was a great line. It was so funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
So some other good lines. Arius kind of giving this mid-galley pep talk. He says, "Your eyes are full of hate, 41. That's good." So this is after he's kind of done the drum test to see how fast they could all row and see who survived.
Yeah, and the Sheikh had a good line too.
Yes.
He had more than one good
Yeah, a
line, but
few.
this was pretty classic. One God, he says, "One God I can understand, but one wife is uncivilized."
Yes. And then Ben-Hur's best line is probably, he says, "I'll come back." This is after he's confronted Masala. That's only good in retrospect because it's a bit of a Terminator impression.
Yeah.
25 years
And
before
at
the
some
Terminator.
point, the Sheikh says, "Can I introduce you to my wives?" And then he opens a door, and all these horses are there.
So
That was a very strange scene.
Yes, it was. He's married to his horses. He loves his horses. Does this pass the Bechdel test? And obviously the answer is no, right? Well,
It's incredible. I mean, I'm not sure the women were wearing pants, so
true.
that could be one of the fails.
Yeah.
But amazingly, yes, the three named women, Miriam, Tirzah, and Esther, they apparently have a scene discussing leprosy, which I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's still a very male-centric
Yes.
film. There's barely any women in it, and they hardly talk at all.
but they do have a chat about leprosy.
Technical
pass.
I mean, is there a percentage of the movie where women have to be talking? Because I imagine that one conversation is probably about 0.002 of the movie's length.
Yep. It's
Anyway.
very small. How would modern technology impact or improve or change the plot? I mean,
Okay, I don't know. What do you reckon?
well, I've got the roof tile incident, so you'd only need a couple of security cameras around to go, there you go. This just fell off by itself. Like, no one threw a roof tile at the governor.
But they wanted to
I know.
frame him, so the footage would have gone
But
missing
they could have found
regardless.
the roof tile, found the security camera and say, look, see, this is evidence.
I mean, there would have been lots of people filming that arrival of the horse on
that's
their
right.
phones,
Yeah.
so they would have.
Ben-Hur probably would have been filming it. He would have been taking a selfie and going,
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
right.
And you could have seen the tile slipping off in the background.
Maybe, and then they would have framed him regardless.
Yes. What about the chariot race? I think after the first lap, with those spiked hubs, just things crashing everywhere, just like
They would have picked up
They
on
would
that.
have waved the flag. They would have had to all go into the pit stops.
The red
these
light
days.
would have come
Yeah.
on, and everyone would have had
the car, the chariot that goes around the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these days, though, it wouldn't even be a chariot race. It'd be some kind of online computer game,
that's
wouldn't it?
true, yeah.
They'd all be
Yes.
going, "I want you to be my
Yeah.
winner in this." What about leprosy? Because that doesn't really pass in.
No,
modern
I
times.
think the mother and the sister just get some drugs, get some antibiotics or whatever you do to deal with leprosy these days, and they'll be fine. So
So we gotta give them
they don't need Jesus to cure you of that anymore. Yeah.
No, we need to give them some modern day version like Ebola or something like that,
Yes.
which they can then be cured from. So you mentioned a number of tributes, homages and remakes. We've already talked about these really, haven't we?
Yeah, so there were silent films in 1907 and 1925. There was a play in 1899. I'd love to see the chariot race in the play. There was a remake in 2016 that died a very grim death.
Oh, thank goodness for
I don't
that.
even remember it. And
And
as
we already mentioned the other
Life
parodies.
of Brian and the Phantom Menace both ripped off various things.
So the Oscar movie cinematic universe, it's kind of hard to squeeze this one in because it's many centuries before any of our other movies.
Yes. I'm going to say that someone in one of these other Oscar movies must reference Jesus or the Bible at some point. And if they do, they are talking specifically about the one that we saw in this movie, and that's our link for the Oscar movie. I can't remember. There was a guy who was an alcoholic. Did he get Alcoholics Anonymous there? That's very Jesus-centric.
I'm sure there
So
was-
I think somebody in one of these movies must mention God or the Bible.
Maybe they did a prayer.
Yeah. So I think that's all good.
But we are going to check now if there are any Hitchcockian kind of themes. And the first one is the MacGuffin. Do we have a MacGuffin?
I'm going to suggest that maybe the mother and the sister are a MacGuffin. There's certainly a MacGuffin for Ben-Hur, who spends the entire 80% of the movie is him trying to get back to find them. That's his number one goal. He's just trying to track them down. I don't really care what's going on with the mother and the sister. It's just an excuse for Ben-Hur to go on random adventures.
Yeah,
and
an excuse for him to come home too. And his revenge drives him as well.
Yeah.
They are the most likely MacGuffin for sure, but I think the audience does care about their fate. So perhaps that means they're technically not a MacGuffin. They're the closest of what we have. And technically, strictly speaking, they're not what everyone is looking for.
No.
But anyway, they're the closest thing we have.
got.
So I think that's right. So what about a cameo?
Well, we don't have a director cameo, but we do have lots of Jesus cameos. So I'm going to say that's even better.
That's much better.
Yeah. So Jesus cameos count.
Now, we definitely have a mother character. So we have Ben-Hur's mother. We have plenty of animals.
Yeah.
All horses, though, right?
Mostly horses, yeah. I can't
so.
remember any others.
Horses everywhere, actually.
Yeah.
What
we've
about...
got a lead character at a standstill because for a good chunk of the time, while Ben-Hur's away, he's literally imprisoned and part of a chain gang. So I think that's pretty much at a standstill.
Yeah, that's good.
What about characters with elements of good and bad?
Well, has Ben-Hur got elements of good and bad? I mean, he is driven by revenge, but he's mostly supposed to be good.
He's mostly supposed to be good, but he does dabble with the dark side, and he has to be talked out of that by Esther at some point.
And what about Ben-Hur's father, that adopted father?
I think he's the better example because he's pretty cruel at first to his slaves. Like he deliberately comes in and says, "All right, I'm going to torture you and see how many, crumble under the pressure of ever-increasing rates of drumming."
Yeah.
But eventually, he says, "All right, Ben-Hur, you saved me, so I'm going to adopt you as my son." And you're like, the son I never had. He's like, he doesn't just, begrudgingly adopt him. He's just like, "Nah, you're the best. You're a good chariot racer, and I love you."
Yes, which makes me wonder who was Ben-Hur's real father. We never saw any
didn't
sign
see
of him. Anyway, that's we don't need another character there. And then mistaken identity, that tile accident.
Yeah.
We've got Ben-Hur as a mistaken
Yeah.
identity, but that was just an excuse. I mean, Masala would have found an excuse to imprison him at some point anyway.
Yeah.
But also this sort of ordinary man mistaken identity happened when he got this new title as the Roman
That's true,
son, and there was a bit of a mistaken identity there where Masala wasn't expecting him.
yeah,
So I think
that's
he's
good, yeah.
changed identity a number of times, which is fitting for a Hitchcock.
Yes. Do we have a
what
smart young woman?
No way.
Esther's pretty dumb.
It's just as is the sister. So
Yeah.
no smart young woman at any point, and no other women at any stage.
No.
Except I know occasionally when at the racing car,
Yeah.
when he's getting fawned over by a number of women there.
Yeah.
But what about bumbling cops or the equivalent?
We did have bumbling Roman prison guards because Ben-Hur escaped
Pretty
incredibly easily. They were all in pursuit of him. He was chained up. He somehow broke free of his handcuffs. Yeah. And they also didn't notice for several years that a couple of their prisoners had leprosy. So I don't think they're the greatest prison guards.
I don't think they cared if the prisoners have leprosy, probably.
Well, they cared once they opened the door. So, holy shit.
We don't want to go anywhere near you.
Yeah.
The
Visual sex reference?
Visual sex reference we do have.
Yes. So
That Ben-Hur Masala reunion.
yeah, and they kind of drink from the goblets and they embrace one another's arms. Yes, it's a
very leathery homoerotic vibe.
Yes.
What other tropes have you got?
So we've got Chekhov's skill. These are all from tvtropes.org. So Chekhov's skill was when they first meet Ben-Hur and Masala, they have a little spear throwing competition, and then within moments Ben-Hur's throwing spears and as part of his escape bid, and so that's good. We've got color coded for your convenience, and so this is during the chariot race. Ben-Hur's got his white horses, Masala's got his black horses, just so you can see who is who.
Very spectacular selection of horses, by the way. Every team of horses was a different colour.
Yep.
It looks so great.
Yep. We've got the faceless, which is Jesus' face never being shown. We've got like a son to me, and this is, of course, Ben-Hur becomes this to the Roman
And even though you're
heiress.
30, I'm going to adopt you.
Yeah, a little bit odd. We've got the punch clock villain. We've got this is Pontius Pilate right at the end. He's just saying, look, I don't really want to be a bad guy, but my job is to, crush any potential rebellion. So that's what I'm going to do. He didn't even really want to be the governor of Judea, but he's got to do it. Which means,
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got the Sistine Stele, and this is the famous image of the creation of Adam, which wasn't very popular. So that's God touching Adam's finger from the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
That wasn't particularly seen up until this movie. This movie popularized the use of that image in mainstream media. Yeah. Huh. So it's often used in parody form these days, but it was
where was it in the movie?
It was kind of right at the beginning. You saw that as an introduction. It was right at the end. It basically bookended the movie.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So, North by Northwest versus Ben-Hur. How could North by Northwest have borrowed from Ben-Hur to get some Oscar juice?
Well, I mean, it clearly needed an overture and an intermission. But, I mean, North by Northwest probably had that anyway. We just don't see it in the versions that we normally see.
Yeah. But it also needed at least another, hour and a half of footage?
Yes, need to be longer. I think there's just as much plot in North by Northwest.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's just crammed into a slightly shorter time span.
Yes.
I think instead of putting Thornhill in a car after feeding him bourbon to go down the mountain, he has to drive a 4-horse chariot down the mountain. I think that would be a good way of North by Northwest getting some more Oscar
Drunken Cary
juice.
Grant
driving 4 horses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe Hitch should have, he got this UN building, maybe make it, 18-acre replica of the UN with 8,000 extras and, just a massive, you got to spend money, Hitch, got to spend money to make Oscars, as the saying goes.
There were a fair few extras in North by Northwest as well. Another way I think would be on the train, Thornhill needs to flirt with Van Damme on the train instead of with Eve Kendall.
Yes,
I think that would really be another way that
and one of them isn't told that they're being flirted with. I'm not sure which one, but
no, I think they're both quite clever. I think they would have worked that out.
Possibly.
And also both been into it.
Yeah, yes, very possibly.
Yeah.
Perhaps Hitch could have also added one mysterious extra in the background of every action sequence. A carpenter in sandals with no dialogue. Just never see his face. He's just there watching.
That could have been Hitch in the cameo.
I would love to see Hitch play just from behind. Yeah. We know his silhouette, so that would work. And maybe he offers Cary Grant a glass of water after the crop duster scene.
Let's put Jesus into North by Northwest scenes. I've got a couple of suggestions here where we can only see him from behind or with his face obscured.
Yep.
So I reckon he's the man waiting for the bus in
Yes.
the crop duster scene.
Yep.
Because he doesn't talk.
Yep.
I also think that at the Lester Townsend house, as the police are leaving with Thornhill and the mother, he's the guy clipping the hedges as well.
Yeah,
we could have him as... and maybe we have him also shaving next to Thornhill in the train station bathroom.
Yes.
There's a lot of possibilities.
Maybe just trimming from behind.
Yeah,
you can't lose the beard.
We can't lose the beard.
Beard's
No,
part
that's
of the
right. But with
image.
long hair, sandals, a robe. And so there's a few options there.
Yes. Do we have to give Eva Marie Saint leprosy?
Oh, I hope not.
No,
We don't
let's not do that.
We don't want to give her leprosy, no.
Yes.
I think we have to cut the leprosy. I'm not sure that it won the Oscars because of the leprosy, but I mean, it
Didn't hurt.
Tweak the heartstrings a little.
Yes. All right, so I think that's. But ultimately, though, we still. I can see why Ben-Hur won. It's obviously a massive movie. You can see why people were impressed by it. You could see why everyone was like, "Yeah, got to give this as an Oscars."
To Ben-Hur,
I mean, personally, I would still, go for North by Northwest every time. But you can definitely see how and why it won.
The humour, it wasn't a highly valued element of movie making back then, unless you were in a wacky rom-com or something.
Yes, like Tom Jones, of course.
Oh.
Yes. Although there was quite one of the funny moments I've forgotten about till just now in Ben-Hur was when there was a blind person and he took the mother and sister there and they dropped a coin in the blind man's jar and then he overheard them going, lepers, 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 and he just turned his coin over, tipped the coin out rather than touch it.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yes. All right. So where do we rank Ben-Hur against the other Oscar movies we've watched? Where are you going to put this one?
I am putting it number 4. So
Number 4, okay.
Yep, Casablanca, Gaslight, Rebecca, Ben-Hur, just above Bridge on the River Kwai.
Over Bridge on the River Kwai?
Yeah,
wow.
over Bridge on the River Kwai.
Wow. I'm not that keen on it. I've gone The Godfather, Bridge on the River Kwai, Casablanca, Gaslight, Rebecca, then Ben-Hur.
Aha.
Just
Okay,
ahead
so
of
we've both
Wings.
got it under Rebecca
Yes.
and just ahead of Wings, but you've got a few others at the top there.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so yeah, I really like Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
And we are, though, about to talk about our next movie, which is a Hitchcock.
Yes.
Have you worked out the cryptic clue?
The second best Hitchcock movie. So the cryptic clue was, he's unusually posh on the outside, but inside there's an awful heartless cry. And it's 6 letters. What
And
could
the
this possibly be?
The answer is obviously Psycho, and it's built up as follows. There's 2 anagrams in here. Unusually is the anagram indicator of posh, and if you rearrange posh, you get PSHO, which is the outside of psycho, the word psycho. And then what have we got on the middle of psycho?
Yeah, so we've got PSHO, that's on the outside. Inside, a heartless cry. So a heartless cry is cry without the middle letter, so that's just CY. But it's an awful heartless cry, which is another anagram indicator. So you rearrange that, you get YC. And if you put the YC inside PSHO, you get Psycho.
We're rewatching Psycho from 1960. This was Dan's second ranked Hitchcock movie, and I have it ranked at number 7 on my list. And it's matching your second ranking.
Yep.
And we'll see if either of our opinions change on the rewatch, and we'll let you know next month.
Yeah, so if you have any questions or feedback on Psycho, feel free to email them in, feedback@hitchpodonline.com. We'll do our best to answer them in our next episode. And we will also be doing a book club on Psycho over at the Patreon. So we do have a copy of Psycho, the book here.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yes, so come join us, pay the $2.
Pay the $2.
Roger, pay the $2.
And we will speak to you next month.
Thank you for listening to HitchPod. Please come and talk to us on
Blue Sky
at
hitchpodonline.com.
or on Facebook by searching for HitchPod. And you can also email us directly at feedback@hitchpodonline.com. And if you want more Hitchcock content, please consider becoming a HitchPod supporter. Just go to patreon.com/HitchPod. And for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Season 1 coverage of every single Hitchcock movie, as well as bonus episodes on Hitchcock-esque movies. Invitations also to watch live rewatches and much, much more.